Hey, welcome back to my channel. So I am very excited to announce I was able to procure an RTX 5090. I'm also very dissatisfied in saying that I have an RTX 5090. Now, some of you may be saying, why would you say that, right? Well, if you haven't been living under a rock, or if you are even savvy on PC stuff, you would know this generation has been plagued with issues, right? There are ROPs that are missing. Luckily, I'm not one of those guys that are missing it. Cables are melting. Things are just not going well. So I'm going to talk to you guys about my review of the RTX 5090 Trio from MSI. I'm going to show you guys some preventative maintenance on how to make sure that you're not affected by some of these issues, and talk about the PCB teardown, do a quick analysis on it, and see what we can't review when it comes to this. This is going to be a quick review. I'm a law student. I do not have time to do like as many in-depth analysis as I want. Those can take days or even weeks to do. But I want to get that data out because it has frustrated me to not see pictures of the PCB. Spoiler alert, it's the same PCB as a Supreme if you want to see those pictures. Second spoiler alert, it's got bigger capacitors, and it's got some different capacitors, so not quite one for one, but the PCB is about the same. We are going to put some PTM on it. I am not going to wait for it to fully cook in. Spoiler alert, even not cooked in, it's the same temp. All right, so let's take a look at this card itself. I think it's a great looking card. It's about 3 slots. It's got a nice little shiny dragon on the back. It's basically plastic. Looking at the 12-volt high power connector, you'll see there is a thermal pad on the connector to help reduce some of that heat and put it onto the back plate. That's a good thing. I think it's a good design piece. Lots of thermal pipes, and the thing stays cold. Alright, so now to test the Firmark score on this thing. Full disclosure, at this point I had not checked my cables for any melting issue. This was just a bare bones run at it out of the box. You'll see it's hitting around 71, 72, 73C. You might watch me struggle to up the fans because it was stuck at 40% speed, and I gotta say, at 40% fan speed, it is silent. Not near silent, silent. And it's hitting 73C, and that's perfectly adequate temperatures. This thing is a cooling beast. And I don't even know if you need a Supreme this generation if it's gonna hit those temps. So everything's perfectly within spec. Everything looks good. And it's just a beast of a card. I mean, what more can you say? So after this initial validation and checking out everything, we're going to tear it down. We're going to look at, again, the PCB. We're going to look at how you tear it down. I'm going to apologize in advance. I don't have great camera equipment. I am not a professional YouTuber, and I never will be, right? This is just something to do to share my experience. This is not a dream of becoming the next Gamers Nexus, right? So I'm gonna have to cut as I go through, but I hope you guys enjoy seeing the PCB teardown. So for the back plate, that's where we're gonna start. You just have a bunch of screws at the top, nothing too crazy. I think about 7 or 8 total. And then here you're gonna have about another 8 screws to get to remove the PCB from the cooler itself. And then there will also be 2 screws for the IO bracket. All right, now after all of that, you should be able to just pull the PCB right off the cooler. It's a little challenging with the thermal pads creating some suction, but other than that, pretty good. MSI did tell me in an email, these thermal pads are 1.25 millimeters. You'll have 3 individual fan controls and then 2 RGB controllers as well. So that is basically the PCB. Now that we've torn her down, let's slap some PTM on her and see how she goes.
Licensing reimagined.
Using out my side monitor, it shows our max temp is 70C now. Just started the test. GPU memory is at 62. and that's perfectly adequate. So the first thing you're going to want to do to look at your cables is check out a thermal gun, and just look at the temps of your cables. Bauer had an issue where 2 of the cables were getting hot. In mine, you're going to see that all 6 are hot, which is actually a good thing, and they stayed within good temps. Now, the next thing I'm going to recommend to protect your investment is a clamp tester. It's going to check you the DC amps, and the spec is 9.5 amps per cable. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to take a quick look at your 6 pins that are going to be at your top near your sense pins and make sure they're all under 9.5. To spare you guys the suspense, they all were about 8.3 while running Furmark, and that is perfectly good, and it's showing that the load is evenly distributed. This is going to help prevent against cable melting and just further protect your $3,000 investment. So final sit rep. What does all this mean? What am I talking about? So I would start by saying, one, the 5090 is plagued with issues, but it doesn't mean those issues will necessarily affect you with proper maintenance and a lot of extra care. And I think it's unfair that the average consumer has to take these precautions and invest in clamp testers to check the amperage of the clamps or the cables, and thermal guns to make sure that, again, just another check, right, that all the cables are receiving a spread load and that 2 cables or 3 cables aren't just receiving all the watts and then melting at certain pins, right? Another thing that I think this shows and we need to talk about is, one, the teardown. It's a great teardown. MSI made a beautiful card, and frankly, for what it is, you would think it's a higher end model. I probably will end up trading it up for the Supreme when availability becomes more there. But for now, I don't hear it. It's whisper silent, even with the fans locked at about 50%. You don't hear anything until about 60%. And at that point, you're at 60, you don't need it. Another thing, so PTM, I probably will drop a comment on how PTM worked. Uncooked, you saw the max temp was like 70, 71. Max temp earlier in the testing looked like 73, 74, really shooting at 72. So already before it's even cooked, it's dropped some temps, always a good thing. So final synopsis of this launch, it is a blank show. I wouldn't recommend you buy this card right now with all the issues it has. If you noticed, and I didn't point this out, the PCB had 2 shunt resistors. The Founders Edition had 1, so MSI's a little bit better for that. But the ROG Astral, despite being way too expensive, has 6 shunt resistors and allows software monitoring. So you wouldn't have to invest in, well, at least this, because you can see the DC amps over software. And that's not gonna fix the issue. It's not gonna resolve it, but it at least helps you monitor it and can prevent some of those issues. So I can't tell you what card to buy. I think MSI's built great cards as far as thermals and acoustics, but we have these issues that I can't promise you will get better. And the missing ROPs, I mean, come on. That's just on NVIDIA's part. They test every card they send out. That is just pure negligence. But it is a fantastic card to play with. It does operate within spec, and I haven't had any driver issues except for one. And I think it's actually a Vbios issue because it only affects MSI Trio cards, whether it's 5090, 5080, or 5070 Ti. People are reporting across the board that the Trio cards can't use 3D Mark, and I can report I cannot use 3D Mark. It will crash. The whole screen goes black and you got to restart. I don't think it's a driver issue because I only see it happening to Trio cards. I think it's a Vbios issue. So MSI, if you could get that, that would be great. Thank you for watching me ramble. Bye. Thank you guys for watching me. I know my editing isn't perfect and it means a lot that you guys still sit through it. Thank you.